You made the move. Or maybe you're about to. Or maybe you're still in it, showing up, performing, delivering, while something quiet in the background keeps saying, this is not it. Either way, something has shifted and you can't unknow it. Here's what nobody tells you. The landing strip is a little rocky once you come down from the high of accomplishment. There are moments of real excitement, real clarity, like, yes, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And then night comes, and the anxiety rolls in, the what ifs, the what am I actually doing? Not because you made the wrong choice, by the way, but because you're standing in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. Done pretending this is enough, done pushing through, done ignoring the thing that keeps pulling at you. That's exactly where this podcast lives. I'm Laura Dionisio, founder of Lead Intact, and I've been exactly where you are. The corporate success that stopped feeling like success, the leap that was equal parts terrifying and necessary, the messy, non-linear process of building something that actually fits and learning to trust yourself through all of it. This is the pivot point. Real conversations about what's actually happening beneath the surface and what it takes to build a life that feels as good as it looks. Not just the wins, the attempts too. Because I'm not here to romanticize the journey. I'm here to show you what it's really like. Let's get into it. Welcome, Brandon, to the Pivot Point podcast. Thank you so much for being here and for making me laugh before we even hit record. I appreciate you so much. So, audience, you're in for a treat. Brandon and I know each other through our mentor and, friend, coach, however you want to call the amazingness, that is Elise Archer. And, when I met Brandon in person, he just has like this dry humor, but is at the same time so intelligent that it just makes the things that he's teaching a lot easier to kind of grasp, because it's like, oh, okay, it's delivered in a way that's palpable and also with a side dose of laughter. So thank you again, Brandon, for being here.
For sure. So happy to be here. Absolutely.
So I'm going to go ahead and read your bio so that my listeners know who you are. So Brandon Handley is the creator and host of Spirit of the Deal, where performance, purpose, and intuition intersect. He works with professionals who are done banging their heads against the wall, ready to stop forcing outcomes and start operating from clarity, alignment, and self-trust. Blending real-world strategy with inner transformation, Brandon helps high achievers shift how they work, decide, and lead without burning themselves out in the process. Thank you, Brandon, for being here.
Absolutely. I had to listen to the intro to see who I was showing up as today. Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that.
So, I mean, like when people do an intro for you on the podcast, you're like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I do. That's exactly who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what I would love to start, Brandon, is actually normally I riff off the bio, but because I'm fortunate enough to know you and have listened to your teachings, would you walk us through like how you got started? Specifically, I'm thinking of like that intro you did with Breathwork, because that's the one where I was just like, who is this guy? It like your background is so interesting and your journey of how you got to here.
Jeez, I don't even remember what that intro was, Laura. Spark me. Like, what did I say? And I'll see if I can pick up from there. Like,
Sure. When I first met you, it was through one of like the special classes through Elise, and you were doing a breathwork class and you were explaining like your journey to breathwork. And what I found so interesting is that it was something along the lines of like, you grew up in this space. I think your parents were in it and you're like, ugh, not that.
yeah.
And then from that to like how you ended up doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, exactly. So I think, the way we connected, it was probably like the online course where I came in and gave it for Elise. Yeah. So I came in, Elise and I have known each other we're calling it a decade, and that'll stay a decade for like the first 2 years until it's a decade. And then the 2 years after it's a decade. And that's easy to remember by. But, we've known each other for a long time, and, I've been doing this breathwork stuff for a while. She says, hey, why don't you come in and deliver some breathwork with this group? And to your point, breath work, mindfulness, meditation, and this is all kind of stuff that I grew up with, right? But obviously I reject you reject it, right? Like I think a lot of kids do, like whatever your parents are doing, especially in our generation growing up, you're like, oh, absolutely not. I couldn't possibly. Plus my mom was like full bore hippie, right? Like I mean, so everybody else and where I was growing up, everybody else, this isn't an insult, it's just the truth. Everybody else had like these yuppie parents, like it was corporate, everybody upbringing pretty straight and narrow, like going into these day jobs, and my mom was still like, I don't know, still somewhere smoking weed, right? Like, I mean, and that's just the straight of it. Like, I don't know how else to put it, right? So there's a couple ways I got into it, right? Like, so one was like, I started doing some of this personal development. I worked with Elise, I turned a corner where like things have got to change in my life. I don't know what they are, but like I'll try like almost anything, right? And one of the things I ended
Mm-hmm.
up trying was even just like a little bit of meditation. And when I did it, I used Headspace, and I used Headspace for like maybe like 3 weeks, right? But if you're new to meditation or even mindfulness, and you're working this constant grind kind of job where like you're always on demand, you've confused busyness with productivity, and you're like, oh, I got to respond to emails like within 35 seconds, otherwise people think I'm not here. Oh my God, I've got to build the spreadsheet charts, and I've got to update the project reports. I got to do, you feel like I couldn't possibly 10 minutes meditating. What are you, mad? Right? You want me to sit there, close my eyes, and be in silence, and all these things need to get done? That doesn't make any sense. So I did it for like 3 weeks, and I felt good. I felt like, resolved, not like resolved, but like I felt like a reduction in just general anxiety, stress, and overwhelm, right? Um, and then I stopped doing it for a couple weeks, and then I realized I was cantankerous. I was like sticky and like just like kind of crusty and cratchety. And I was like, man, what's wrong? What's changed? Like something has changed. I don't know what it is because I think at this point I might have already quit drinking, right? So I wasn't drinking, I wasn't hungover, I hadn't done drugs in a long time, so it wasn't drugs or anything else like this. And I was like, what has changed? And I looked back and I was like, oh my God, I haven't been doing the meditations. I was like, No. And like you're like, that's awful, right? And why is it awful? It's awful because like my mom told me, I was like, am I gonna have to call my mom and tell her she was right about this? Or just like anything else in general, like it's the type of thing that's always been in front of you and always available, and you've always said, that's not for me. I mean, as a matter of fact, this was like during the period, and it might have been after the period where I was like literally trying to cure my ADHD, air quoting for anybody listening. I was trying to cure my ADHD, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure Adderall does that, right? So I called around like local like wellness centers and psychiatrists, just trying to get somebody to be like, yeah, you've got ADHD. Let's help you to focus, because I wasn't focusing very well. And
Mm-hmm.
each time I call like these wellness clinics or spaces, they'd be like, give us a little background on your current life. And I'd be like, well, I don't exercise. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't meditate. And you know what? I probably never will. It's not who I am. It's not my path. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And then I finally get a hold of the guy that like does the prescription, right? I get the Adderall, and it was like awful. So I,
Mm-hmm.
I ended up doing this meditation stuff, and I was like, wow, it worked. Like how I didn't need this pill. So then, further on, right, go through like some like, I'll blip it like, a little bit of an awakening experience. This is like actually I'd already worked with Elise. I called Elise for why. I don't know why I called Elise, because she was doing sales coaching, right? Why would she like want to know? Like I was like, Elise, I just had a spiritual awakening, and I don't even know. Like she's like, wow, tell me more about that. I was like, you want to know more? This is amazing, right? Because I didn't even know who to be telling. So as the path goes on, I was also connected with several people. Men's communities were something that I was a part of, and being kind of like your authentic male self. Like I mean, men, they don't have a whole lot of community, right? And they don't have a whole lot of community outside of like maybe churches, etc. But even there's like a expectation, I think, and what's supposed to be happening and how you're supposed to be behaving, and even in business, it's just like your job. I actually had a friend of mine or somebody coworker tell me a while ago. I was like, "What's your community like?" It's just my coworkers. I was like, "That sucks." right? Like 'cause that's all that's left at a certain point. So I had a couple guys, I'm still in touch with them right now. And we would have these regular conversations called Beyond the Storm. And the one guy in there named Dave, 25 years sober, started doing these breathwork sessions. And another friend of mine, Tom, calls up, actually a past client. He goes, "Hey, Brandon, are you going to Dave's breathwork session?" I was like, "Tom," I was like, "I read, I meditate, I listen to all the podcasts, I do this. I'm like personally developed, like I couldn't possibly, I'm not even interested, right? Not even, couldn't care, don't wanna." And he goes, "Brandon, I'm only going because he's your friend." I was like, "Come on, man." So I end up going. I get into Dave's like session, and Dave like he's like, "All right, just put on the headphones, lay down, and I'm gonna walk you through this hour-long session." Goes to the hour-long session, mind blown, and I was like, "All right, Dave." I was like, I'm in, right? He's like, "I know, right?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm in." Just like, so how do I go learn how to do this stuff myself? Like, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know. You have to go figure it out yourself." I was like, "Dave, that is messed up, man." Like he wasn't in a position that he felt like he could teach it yet, right? So he's like, "You have to go find your own path." So I did. I went. Maybe it's probably a year. It might have been 2 years later. I ended up getting a Soma certification in breath work. Coupled it with like I've done uh, several other coaching certifications, life coaching, business coaching, all this other stuff, right? Coupled it with the breath work, and now I just kind of couple it all together as a way to like do like bottom up work, right? A lot of times we're using our head all the time and doing top down, but like we can use our body to deliver a lot of the results, or at least put us into a state of being that's receptive, especially working with Elise and this group, right? It's like we want to be high performers and we don't want to be burnt out, right? A lot of times people don't even realize that they're in like overdrive all the time because it's a normal state. So that's the shortest version I could probably give you right now on how I got there.
That was so good. And you said some things that I will for sure go back to during our time together. But what I want to get started with was like, first, I just want to reflect back. What you said is so relatable about the whole, like, well, first of all, my parents did it. I don't want to do it. I get it.
Right.
Like, no, I don't want that. I think my friend of mine called it oppositional defiance. He said I had that in spades. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
thanks, friend. I get it. What I love about what you said is like so relatable. You talked about like, the constant grind, how we see busyness as productivity. And I love your honesty about how you're like, I don't meditate, probably never will. And can you talk a little bit more about like what prompted you to then start the meditation?
Actually, I think it came from this guy, Nitin Mohan. I was in Toastmasters, and Nitin had given a Toastmasters on meditation, and he'd given a nice in just like a 30-second, maybe a 2-minute one, and I felt something in that one, and I was like, and it was somebody else actually that I ended up reaching out to, and when I went through my awakening experience, I was like, Nitin, I need to talk to you, right? But it was just a real simple, maybe 30-second experience given by somebody that I felt something, and I was like, let's try it out, right? I'm open to, I needed to make a change. I needed changes, and I didn't know where to turn.
So a lot of my listeners are those who are, high performers, productivity is king. They have maybe heard, honestly, this was me probably like five, not even that long, maybe like 4 years ago, where I wasn't per se anti-meditation, but I just didn't understand the point because something that you share with who I used to be, which is like, I don't have 10, 20 minutes to sit around and So for the listener who's at that point, and I'm sure you have a lot of clients and you talk to a lot of people who are there, what would you suggest as like a taste, a starting point? And also, how has it changed your life from where you are now versus the version of you who was busy, probably really productive, probably really like high performer, but probably also was not calm, peaceful?
The truth of the matter, so like, right, we feel like it's the doing that we've always got to be doing this thing to be productive, and that doing looks like, am I striking the keyboard, am I writing notes, am I taking in more content, all this stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't get the opportunity to see what we might already have inside of ourselves, right? We might already have the answers, if we would just shut up for a minute, right? Or turn it all off, turn it all down for a minute. And so and we gotta it shows you to learn to trust yourself, right? So for the person that's like out there doesn't have the time, I want you to think about like what's a huge project that you're working on right now that you're standing in front of the screen, that you're Googling for more answers, and you've probably read like 400 answers that might suffice. Maybe you've had a conversation with somebody and you're just struggling to find the right thing, right? What is the right thing? And I want you to just like, I don't know, shut it all down for like 5 minutes, put on like, I don't know, a rain, whatever, like your white noise is, close your eyes and breathe through it for a minute. Don't even try it and stop thinking, right? Stop, think, and let something come to you. Like you've asked for all the stuff. And I do this in my breath work all the time, right? We talk about like pulling in. What are you asking for? You're asking for answers. You're asking for insight. You know, but you're rarely letting it come to you, right? You ask for it, but then you go fucking chase it some more. Pardon my language, right? You're like, I gotta go get it. I gotta chase it down. Gotta be active about it. You never let it come to you, right? Just let it come to you. So it's called asking you shall receive. It's not called ask and go chase it down, is it, Laura? Right? It's
No,
asking
it's
you shall
not.
receive. So it's like you put it out there, close your eyes, and like just focus on your breath, and you'll see like like many instant answers, and it's funny because the answers aren't like these huge epiphanies. They're like little bursts of like, oh, and they're simple, right? They're like simple because we've been you've been trying to complicate it, right? You were what kind of engineer were you, Laura? Like what kind of engineer like work did you do?
Systems engineer in aerospace.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot more than I've ever done, but like there's a lot of like pieces, right? What do they? It's a what do they call it? There's always like a piece of like a critical piece, right? And that's the piece that it can be like super small that as soon as like you remove it or add it, that's what fixes the whole thing, right? You
Hmm.
don't need to fix the whole thing. You just need to find the critical infrastructure or critical piece. And a lot of times you find that in like a breath work or meditation because you stop thinking about one thing that I took away from our conversation was like you think about the what and the how kind of takes care of itself, right? So when you stop thinking about the how it needs to get done, that kind of shows up on its own in those meditations. So again, for that person that's like, I got 10 minutes to figure out like this life-saving thing, the spreadsheet that's going to save the world. And the news is that spreadsheet's probably not going to save the world. So you probably put it down for like a minute and take that 5 to 10 minutes to just relax and give it no thought. And the answers will come because you've been asking for them.
Mm. I love that. I love also that what's relatable that what you said about your experience and your journey is that I think you said something like you were doing it for 3 weeks and then you stopped. And then for what was it? What for the coming days or weeks, you're like, I wonder why
What
I
changed?
feel off. Can you talk a little bit more about like the differences in like the day-to-day moments of like pre-meditation, when you were meditating, and then when you stopped, so that the listener, because in the beginning it's not as you, at least for me, I didn't get the answers right away. So it can be like, why am I doing this? So I would
Yeah.
love for the listeners to really understand what it could be like.
Well, I mean, there's a couple pieces there, right? You are setting the conditions when you initially meditate, right? Like you're setting conditions, so there's really nothing there. It's kind of like going out into a field and like just cleaning it, right? I think in those initial when you first get started, because a lot of people what they do is they sit down, they meditate for 5 minutes, and like this doesn't work for me, and they roll out. They're like, I'll never meditate again. And so one is to make it a continuous practice, and by practice and a continuous I don't mean like sit every day 10-20 minutes. Start with Headspace. I think Headspace is excellent. You start with 1 minute, right? You start with 1 minute, you work your way up to two like it's not these huge jumps. So and then you just start to notice how you feel differently. It's like, I know it sounds weird, but it's like almost like a life texture change, right? I don't know, like it's like there's a literal like life feels different. and there's really not a better way to put that. So life's going to feel different. It's not going to look different. Everything's going to look the same, but it's just going to have a different feel about it. And that different feel is generally softer and calmer, and not softer and calmer as into, what did I say? Let's get things done here. Like that was the intent to like, let's get, so it gives you that space to let things get done without forcing them, if that makes sense, right? So that's kind of what you'll experience. But like when you first start, there's nothing to, and here's the part that's tricky and it's paradoxical, right? Like, yes, these things can happen, but they're all going to happen at like a different speed for a different person. Each person's different. And so go into it without any expectations, right? There's the line from like I think the mystic or Talopa from 1,000 million years ago. It's like have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing, right? So you go in with this openness and you leave your attachments, and the attachments that you're leaving behind can be those that you like. I feel like this is what meditation is supposed to be like, right? Leave it behind. Just go sit, breathe, listen to Andy, follow the stuff, and stop. And I don't know how else to say it, but like when you stop thinking, cool thoughts come. I mean, right? That would be like the first like 3 weeks. I mean, that's just basically what I recall. Is like because if you go in with an expectation, um, it's kind of like as an engineer, I don't know. I love playing with like magnets growing up, right? And if you put the poles on the wrong side, like they just keep repelling each other. So it's like that.
Mhm.
It's like you're pushing a magnet around. It's like, but all you got to do is like flip it, and they come together, right? It's the exact same thing. So just like stop chasing the magnet around. I don't know.
I like that analogy with a magnet. Yeah. Because if you have it the wrong way, it doesn't matter how hard you push, you're pushing it harder away, like further away. Like you're forcing it, even though you want to get closer. But to your point, like with meditation, it's kind of like you're like, oh, I don't actually have to force anything. I just have to attract, and you just kind of go the other way. Love that. We'll be stealing that analogy. So for the listener who hasn't started, they've researched this, they've Googled, right? Why meditation? They've seen the
Mhm.
study. This was me, by the way, Brandon. This was totally me.
Sure.
I was the
Yeah.
person who couldn't sit down. And I wish I had this advice. Start with 1 minute.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is doable for anyone. Start with 1 minute. And I love go into it without expectation, being open to everything and attached to nothing. Because that was a mistake I had made as well. Is because I'm like, my thoughts are not peaceful. I can't do it. And
Yeah.
then the third is to let it come to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is all good for meditation, right? The challenges are this, and this is where breath work comes in, Laura. So I'll jump in with a little bit of breath work. So breath work and breathing, like they have their specific practices and like there's modalities, but what really happens is, from like neuroscience, and I'm probably using some neuroscientist is gonna be like he's wrong, and that's okay. I'm okay with that because I'm not a neuroscientist. But the idea is when we do these breathing practices, it can be you can do your square breathing, your box breathing, whatever. What really is happening is you're kind of doing like what they call like single pointed meditation, right? In a way, you're just basically focusing on like one or single pointed would obviously be just one thing, and that would just be the breath, right? But when we do it the way that I usually teach it, there's a beat, there's like a music, there's like a guided piece in there, and then there's like just following the breath, right? And so what happens is your prefrontal cortex, the crown jewel, right? This amazing thing, the executive functioning thing. Um, I don't know if how much you've dug into this, but like it's basically like a 40-bit Texas Instrument calculator, right? It can write like hello if you get the numbers right on there. Right? Versus like your subconscious, which is like, your subconscious is like a mega supercomputer, right? Now, your prefrontal cortex is like the filter of kind of what you want to pull in there, right? It's like your Google, think of like your brain is like your subconscious is kind of like Google and the algorithm, and your prefrontal cortex is the little window that you're typing in, right? Now, what'll happen is it can only really focus on about, I've heard people say like five, and what I've understood it to be is like around four things, right? So it can only really focus on about four things. And once you get to like the fifth thing, this is where overwhelm comes in, right? Like if you're like, oh man, I got to get that spreadsheet done. I got to make this sales call. I got to do this. I got to do that. And you're like, oh, yeah. You fall apart, right? After you get to like the fifth thing. And the same thing happens when you sit down to meditate. You're like, all right, I need my mind to be quiet. Why is my mind not being quiet? My mind's not being quiet. I got to get the groceries. I got to do the things. Oh my, what am I wearing? I don't even know, right? Like, so like in your meditation, you're like, you're not really giving it anything to do. Like our mind is like, it's like an unruly 2-year-old. Like we have trained it for zilch. We haven't trained it at all. And that's why like anybody who sits down when they first start is like their mind's like everywhere. Like I can't tell you the number of people. It's been like, over 1,000 now, or like people are like, yeah, my mind races and it does all the thing and doesn't get quiet when I sit down to do whatever. Okay, that's everybody. All right. So you're not alone, which is the good news, right? And the other side of that is that there's a way to get through this. Meditation is also, it's an advanced practice. That's a lot of people don't realize that it's an advanced practice. So breath work is kind of like training wheels for meditation. So what you do when you're doing the breath work, and again, any practice, I don't care if it's something I do or somebody else, like focus on the breath, focus on gratitude, focus on a specific rhythm, and whatever. Like you can have like sometimes I'll just count my fingers. But what I've done then is, yes, I'm doing the breath work. Yes, there are physiological benefits to it, 100%. But I've also given my prefrontal cortex 4 things to focus on. Boom, real nice, easy, right? Now, and that's great because now it's like I'm just focus on these things. I'm not thinking. I can't think anymore, right? I've got to hit that memory button, right? I've got to do whatever. I'm the calculator. Like I can't, if I just keep these 4 things going, it's just nice and easy, right? There's nothing complicated in that. Follow the breath, right? Okay, follow the breath. Here's the count. Here's the rhythm. And then, yes, 100%. Your mind's going to wander. You're going to be over here. You're going to be back and like, I got to get like this for dinner. I got to do this for dinner. And then you'll be like, what am I doing? And this is key. And Andy talks about is like, you're going to find yourself over here and you might start beating yourself up. You're like, man, I suck at breathing, right? I am terrible at this breathing thing. And so you start beating yourself up. But like another thing, you got no judgment, right? This is just what it is going to happen. It didn't just happen to you. It happens to everybody 100%. And the beauty of it is that is part of the process. That is awareness. That is mindfulness, recognizing when you're somewhere that you don't want to be and bringing yourself back, right? So you just say, oh, I'll bring myself back to the breath, go back to those 4 things. And then like, this is how you develop it. And it is called a practice, right? Like and your practice is going to be different for everybody involved. I don't think there was any question involved so much as I jumped in with like, this is how breath work is,
Loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the gist is like, those are the pieces that kind of help. So I also tell people, a lot of people, like when I'm in the rooms, I'm with them, I'm like, hey, raise your hand if you feel like you got ADHD. And 99% of the people, raise their hand. All right. And the thing is, it's not that ADHD does not exist, is that you have probably not trained your mind. And your mind is just like doing whatever it wants because we've never trained it, right? The mind is not the master. It's a wonderful tool. And if we let it become the master, we get what we get, right? So hopefully that's all help.
That's really helpful. And now I want to ask more about, actually, I was going to ask about breath work because you had mentioned, so there was a clear difference when you started meditating for 3 weeks and then stopped for a time. And you're like, ooh, okay, I shouldn't have stopped. And then you mentioned that you had an experience with breath work, and that really was like a huge experience. So what was the difference there? And maybe for those, even me, like what exactly is breath work? How could we start? What is it?
I'd probably just liken breath work to like any type of, it's not the thing where like, oh yeah, you work all the time. Like I get upset and frustrated and I take a deep breath. That's cool. That's a default mode network interrupt. I would not suggest you stop doing it. If it's working for you, keep using it. But that's not breath work. That is definitely using breathing to alter something. But breath work would be like a sustained, a couple minute, not even, you can do 30-second practices. I'm thinking of a lion's breath, which is like, quick inhales and then this big exhale. But it's like kind of sustained, purposeful breathing so that you can generally, I use it to help people enter into the parasympathetic, right? So generally we're going to use breath work to enter into a space that not a lot of us occupy, which is the parasympathetic, your rest and digest, and getting into that space purposely. Because when we get into that space, this is where opportunities become more and more visible. So we use it, and again, box breathing would be like, in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, right? When we get into these things, just the rhythm that really, again, this, you're taking control of the prefrontal cortex for one. B, you're also your heart rate is dictated, can be dictated by your breathing patterns, right? So you start to you're literally changing your heart rate by the way that you breathe. So if you want to become excited and like elevated, you're gonna you'll inhale more than you exhale, right, for a sustained period of time. So if you want to calm down, though, if you want to get into the parasympathetic, you're gonna exhale longer than you inhale, right? So again, we're using what's called the bottom up. We're using our body to influence our mind purposely, like and like you're literally changing signals. The other piece of this whole thing is that your heart actually sends more information to the brain than the brain to the heart, right? So your brain is just like checking in, right? It's just like, hey, is everything cool? And heart's like, man, no, we ain't not cool at all. Just like, all right, cool, more cortisols. He needs more cortisols, right? And so you're like always jacked up. But when we do these breathing practices, what happens is like, okay, we've changed our heart rate and we've lowered it. We're lowering our blood pressure. We're taking in, we're breathing in through our nose, which helps us to take in more nitric oxide, opening up our blood vessels, putting less stress on the heart. And then our heart's like actually got like a 40,000 cell brain, right? And the brain and the heart's like, dude, we're good. We're good. Thank you. And then the brain checks in on the heart, and the heart's like, we good. So now you're in this parasympathetic. And when you're in that state, your body produces cortisols or DHEA, and I'm sure it produces other things. But when you're in this relaxed state, it can only produce one at a time, right? So I can produce cortisols or DHEA. And if I'm stressed out, all I can do is produce cortisols. But when I relax, the brain's able to make this DHEA, which is like, again, it's regenerative cells and hormones that are coming out versus the cortisols. Now that you're in a relaxed state, and now that you are out of fight or flight, a couple of things are going to happen. Like your shoulders are going to drop, you're going to relax, you might melt, right? But the other thing that's going to happen is you're leaving this fight or flight, which is like a constrictive and restrictive. You're in a constrictive thought pattern. When you're in scarcity mode, same thing as in survival mode. You're like everything kind of tightens up, and your body even feels tight. You're walking around like an old Michael Jackson Thriller thing, like this, right? Because you're all stuck there. But the thing is like, okay, and it literally changes your perception, not just like mentally, but like visually, right? So when you are in rest and digest, which is what breathwork can help you to do, you're literally able to see more, right? You're able to allow, when we talked about like, allowing things to come, you're able to relax and just let them show up, right? You can stop thinking, you will stop thinking. One of my favorite parts, and again, this isn't to have anybody chase it, but in the breathwork sessions, like one of my favorite parts is like the way I do it. There's some retentions too in there that help you are actually stressing your system out purposefully so that you build resilience, right? So again, this is another piece. It's like, okay, it's a practice. If I practice being stressed, my body's going to be more resilient in those modes, right? So you're just going to be able to see more, have more available to you, and you're doing it for yourself on purpose. When we get into these retentions, it's like almost, it's out of body. It's out of body. There is no thought, and you are in consciousness. I don't know how else to put that for you. I don't know how far out we get in this podcast, but you're in a space, and that space that you're in feels like home. All right. And when you're in that space, you have no choice but to just allow like, it's not even allowing for you to be yourself. You feel yourself. And again, I know that's a nebulous term, but like something you just simply have to experience for yourself.
Mhm. I love that so much because I keep thinking about what did you even say in your bio? Professionals who are done banging their heads against the wall. What comes to mind immediately as you said that, as you feel yourself, is that I talk a lot on this podcast about identity and tying your identity to work. And it really sounds like with breath work, it's a way to separate so that you can actually feel who you are outside of work. And I would love to hear, Brandon, whether it's your own experience or one of your clients, what was the impact once they started working with you?
Yeah, I mean, one client that I would talk about would be again, this guy Tom. He was working on the ground, literally like in a construction unit. Ended up doing some of this work. We worked together on mindset, worked through breath worked through like just kind of releasing this identity of who he thought that he might be, right? And giving him some tools. And next thing you know, he goes from being the guy on the ground to being invited in, and opportunities just kept coming to him, and running these large ass projects without, you know, again, changing who he was. Didn't go get more education. It didn't go. It's just like he was able to bring his levels down into a place of safety for himself. He felt safe with himself, so he felt safe to step into other areas.
Was he looking for that when he started working with you, or he was just looking to calm down? No. Okay, Brandon shaking his head.
No, I don't
That's
think he was really.
awesome. Wow.
It's funny because he wasn't really looking for anything. I was like, look, man. I was like, I've heard you, talk, and we've had some conversations. I was like, pretty sure I can help you, and just move forward into any space. And I was like, I'm gonna promise you right now, I'm not coming in here. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but they're probably within you, and we can work it through. Like I don't ever try and tell anybody. I don't know all the things. I've got some tools. I've got some ways to help you through, and I can reflect some things, right? Like you're great at that, like reflecting, like what you just heard, and some people's, what they're saying, and show themselves to themselves so they can see it, and then help offer a way forward. Not even, and I hate to do that too, like not even a way forward, like a way with intention, right? Where do you want to go? Like I'll never even tell people like it's gonna be better or greater. Like don't tell me, and again, this is not against anybody out there. Like I don't think that I've ever been trying to be the best version of myself, right? I just want to be a version of myself that I'm like happy with, and even that sounds like I'm just there's this piece, right? Like, who is it you're trying to be? Let me help you get there.
I love when you said show themselves. I think that's so powerful. And what I love about the story of the client you shared is that your client wasn't necessarily looking for more. And that's what they ended up finding within themselves once they felt safe within themselves. So I think that's such a powerful story. So thank you for sharing that. So, Brandon, if people are like, he's amazing, I want to learn more from Brandon and connect, and I want to do this breathwork thing, how can they get a hold of you? How can they get more into your stuff, join your community, all that jazz?
So I would just go to brandonghandley.com. You can connect with me there. My email's on there. Connect with me on Instagram is Brandon G Handley _ because Brandon G Handley is also my personal one, and I couldn't use it in both places. And then there's there's a fun one, and I'll give you the link, Laura. You gotten a couple of my emails, which I think you seem to enjoy. So there's a couple things I do there. If you join the mailer, I've got a diagnostic test that you can take just to see kind of where you are and like what's revving your engine. So you can take that, and then you'll get a couple follow-up sessions that kind of would like allude to the type of work that we would be doing for you specifically, right? So if you're running hot, like here's how we cool you off, right? Type of thing. And that's like a free of charge thing that like you could use that, never talk to me again, and hopefully benefit from it. Outside of that, and this is like for personal joy and bliss only. Laura got the horoscope, the monthly horoscope.
Mm.
This is something that I've been doing because I'm a fan of the Astrology Zone. I don't know if anybody else, if you're familiar with it. And this is a woman named Susan Miller. She creates an amazing monthly horoscope, right? They are fantastic. The thing with Susan is, she's like, I don't know. She says she's sick and she's got cancer, so we'll let her roll with it. Bless her heart. Hope she always heals up. But she is always late with her horoscope, right? Like, because it is like, look, it was like on February 1st, Laura, I'm like, where's my horoscope? Right? The
I
stars,
want to know.
the stars are doing what? This is why, like, I got the app. So I started like, I'm like, you know what? Like, honestly, like AI has all of the astrology information. Like, it's not like hidden in the stars. I just can't read them. Right. So, and then I take it and I put it together with, just some kind of just the way I like to be, right? I don't know how else to put it, right? I don't know. I don't how
It's
what you got a lot.
hilarious.
Yeah, you got a
It's
laugh out of it.
hilarious.
Yeah,
I'll put it in the show notes if it's not there already, like Brandon, if I could get that,
yeah,
listeners, because I'm into astrology kind of. If it gets too woo, you've lost me. But Brandon's has like his signature sense of humor. It has something like if you're looking for something fun and light, go buy Crystal. Like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That made me there
Wish
was
it
like
was
the
like a
caffeine
caffeine
level.
meter.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
yes. And I was
yeah,
like, thank you, Brandon, for justifying my increased caffeine intake this month. Like I appreciate it.
for sure.
I love it. I have
Yeah,
one last question that I ask all my guests, and that is, if you were an item, speaking of caffeine, if you're an item in a coffee shop, anything, could be a drink, could be a food item, could be a non-food item, anything at all, what would you be and why?
I'd be the frother because I stir shit up.
Okay, on brand. On brand.
Right? Sure. Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I got another.
Brandon,
Yeah, like is listen. Look, I mean, that's the other look. One other thing that I'll throw out there too is like if you ever do like meditations and breath work with me, it's not. I'm not coming at you like namaste. I want you to leave feeling energized. Like I want you to. I don't want you to leave like and there's nothing wrong. Like I don't want you to leave bowing out namaste. I want you to leave, walk out. I want you to kick the door open and like run out there and go do your thing. Like I mean, you can relax later, but I want you to like feel like you've been charged, like like for your crystal people out there. I want you to feel like you just got like you are the crystal and you've been set up on the counter to get your moonlight charged. That's how you should feel after you do breath work with.
yeah. And listener, this is why I love Brandon is because again, I am like I straddle the practicality and the woo, and so I appreciate it because it's like I can relate. I can relate because if it gets too out there, I'm gone.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Laura, thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you. This has been so good. Big thanks to Brandon Handley for being so open and so real in this conversation. This is exactly the kind of story I created this podcast for. Because when you hear someone else say the thing you've been feeling but couldn't quite name, something shifts. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You probably already know exactly who that is. And if you're sitting with something after this conversation, that feeling that good enough stopped being good enough a long time ago, I want to talk. Book a free 20-minute clarity call at leadintact.com/booking. That's where we figure out together what's actually going on and what your next step looks like. All of Brandon's details are in the show notes. Go show them some love. And with that, I'll see you next time.